Hey, folks, welcome back to the Ink Table Podcast, your friendly neighborhood group of Illumineers who started having conversations at League, and then we were like, hey, let's do a podcast about it. So, as always, I'm Preston, also joined by my co-host Dylan Bailey and our
Up,
producer
everybody.
behind the curtain, Mr. John here. So,
Hi.
John,
I don't know why I'm waving. Nobody can see me. I
it's a
make
test because
I make fun of the guys on the other podcast because we used to stream it, and they would always wave at the end of it. And when we stopped streaming it, they still waved, even though we were. It's like, and I just did it. I just waved. It's like, oh well.
it's a test ever since the first episode. He gave his whole introduction and he was completely muted. So it's a test every episode now.
Yep.
But
I'm good now.
We're good now. But folks, just whenever we think the news around Lorcana is done, it just keeps coming in a sense. But real quick, we have a jam-packed schedule, a little show note agenda for y'all today. We're excited to get into it. We had to contain ourselves at League last night from talking about these things because we got to save it for the show. But quick thank you for the amount of support on the last episode of the podcast. It kind of exceeded all of our expectations. It's our most viewed podcast at over 500 views just on YouTube alone. And I know y'all don't see these statistics on the back end, but almost 100 hours of watch time on that video alone. So welcome to all our new subscribers and new viewers. We are very excited to have you all join us at the Ink Table talking about Lorcana, everything from merchandising to new sets, to lightly talking about what's happening at the community at Hull. So we're glad to have you all here. But Dylan had a note because we just found this out last night. So
Yeah,
Gateway.
Speaking of our last podcast episode, one of the big things that we spoke upon was the Gateway. We said it would be an awesome present for anybody starting off and getting into Lorcana, especially younger Illumineers out there. And I think it was like $12 on Amazon. It's a heck of a steal.
Still is $12.
Yeah, awesome. So we still recommend it, especially if you're new to the community and you're just learning Lorcana. We did have League yesterday, and we did have some new players. We had a father and a daughter who were there for the first time. And they had played some games against each other, and they had used the Gateway product, and they really liked it. But something that we did not know was that locations are not included in Gateway. So as you play Gateway and you learn the abilities, you can add more cards to it and get to learn how like bodyguard, reckless, rush, evasive, all of that works.
I'll win.
Yeah, but for whatever reason, locations were not included. I forget the actual dates. I talked about them a little bit yesterday in our little group chat, but I think it was Into the Inklands came out in like February of last year, and
February,
that's
March,
when
April. Yeah.
that's when locations were first introduced to us, and then Gateway didn't come out until like August. So there was a good 6 to 7 month difference there between when locations were introduced to when this product was introduced. And for whatever reason, Ravensburger decided not to put locations in it. I'm not sure if maybe they were already in the process of manufacturing and it was just too late. But do know that that is not included in there. And if you have new people like we did come into our league last night for the first time, there are still some things that they might not know. So we're really big advocates of trying to build the community of Lorcana and helping each other out. And please take the time to help out newer players that are coming in. And if they don't understand something or if they just haven't seen it yet, slow down. It is okay to slow down your game and help each other learn.
100%. And I would like to think that Gateway was already in the works by the time that set came out.
Yeah.
I'm not a manufacturing expert. I'd like to think that might be the reason, but Dylan hits it on the head. Again, I think it's a good reiteration that, especially that folks are probably going to their first game shop after picking up potentially their first card game or Lorcana. We've seen people stop by for a couple times and not come back. We've seen people come by for the very first time. So just help each other out. You know, your opponent may not know what every card does. I forgot that the new John Silver had resist 1,000,000, and it completely screwed up my play the other day. But we'll do that. So talk things through, and actually, Rebecca had a really good post about this last night. Rebecca being one of the casters for DLCs and also interviewers for DLC. She had actually said like the two types of Lorcana players, and it was somebody like talking things through how we normally do, and then somebody just dead silence. And I'm guilty of that. Sometimes I'll ink and leave that card up without vocalizing it, but I think just communication goes a long way in this game, and it helps your opponent understand what's happening. And guess what? If there's a question about anything, y'all can resolve it. So it's important. Just help your new people out as they might be coming to their first league for the very first time.
Then, speaking on other ways that people can learn how to play the game of Lorcana, we noticed a while back, and I think the community saw this as well, but there seemed to be a new job posting out there that Ravensburger posted on, was it Indeed?
Indeed. Yeah.
Yeah. But it seemed to be a executive producer position that pays between $150,000 to $200,000 a year. So if there's anybody out there who thinks that they fit the requirements and don't mind potentially moving out to Seattle, Washington, it'd be a heck of a job. But it's the requirements that they have to fill this position. Very, very interesting, and it has us heavily thinking that it is Lorcana based. But we'll go over a couple of these and we'll see why that is.
Yeah.
First off, they want 10 years on hands-on experience in game development, including full life cycle experiences, developing and operating mobile and PC games. So this isn't necessarily a AAA video game like your Assassin's Creed, Kingdom Hearts, anything like that. It seems that they want something that is more mobile. See, it is significant experience developing and or producing digital TCGs. Okay.
Good for two.
Ravensburger TCGs. Experience managing AA game development budgets. I want to pinpoint this one because this is pretty interesting too. So for anybody who doesn't know, the typical budget for a AA game is anywhere between $2 million and $10 million. So that means that with a budget like that, it seems like Ravensburger is going to be taking this pretty serious, and they're putting a lot of money behind it. And they think that they're going to be getting their money back. They have proven success in leading cross-functional teams through influence and mutual trust. It is what it is. Passion for TCGs and affinity for Disney.
That's the bomb right there.
That's the big one right there. It's TCGs, it's Disney, Ravensburger. I mean, this is clearly, what else could this be, right?
And the
And they
reason I
want them to
think,
have.
oh, go ahead. So
Yeah.
the reason I think this is so big is for those who may not be familiar, Pixelborn was very popular in the very beginning of Lorcana. And Dylan and John can correct me if I'm wrong here, but Pixelborn was basically a third-party client that allowed for matchmaking of Lorcana. And basically, it wasn't like webcam games like we have now. Pixelborn, before the way we know it now, yeah, it used to essentially be like Hearthstone. The art was there, the function was there, and I don't recall how many people was on the development team. I think just one primary person. But then about, was it Ursula's Return, roughly Shimmering Skies, somewhere in there. Basically, Disney ended up doing what they're legally allowed to do, and that is, cease and desist for intellectual property violations and whatnot. So we're not here to get into, rechalk that history, but basically, we are just saying that was the history of this, and this is why the community is paying very close attention to this, because Pokemon just did their own, TCG mobile experience. And now we have a post from Ravensburger saying, hey, we're looking for someone to develop PC and mobile games, has a love for TCGs, and loves Disney. So I think it's pretty black and white what this is going to be about. Now, I'm not. I play games a whole lot, but I know Dylan's a lot more educated on the timeline of this. Surely, something like this, it's a reason for folks to get excited. But what kind of timeline of publication? Because you got, hiring, you got development, storyboarding. What's your guess? If they were to actually execute on this project 3 years, maybe? I have no idea.
No, honestly, I think it'll be less than that. I mean, let's go back to our previous conversations about Lorcana. How many more sets do we have as of right
Yeah.
now? We're on a timeline.
Yep.
A mobile app typically takes about 6 to 8 months to actually produce the app itself, depending on the team. Can be longer, can be shorter. With this kind of money being thrown at it, and for Lorcana to be on the type of deadline that it's in, I think it could possibly meet that 6 to 8 month period potentially. Well, definitely, I feel like we'll see this app within the next year.
I would agree with that timeline. I could see them doing a D23 teaser or something like that, saying that this is coming.
Or even
But
Worlds.
Worlds that we don't have a date for. But
Yeah. Just to throw out some things about that, this would be an awesome learning experience for people to actually get on an app like this and learn to play. Pixelborn was a little different back then. You could go in and any cards that you wanted, you could just build a deck, a perfect deck. It's decks that typically would cost you of dollars to actually like get the cards to build these decks, even if you were to buy them individually. Right now on the market, you have like Magic the Gathering Arena, Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, and then there's actually two different Pokemon apps. There's TCG Pokemon Online, which is closer to the actual like gameplay and mechanics of Pokemon, and you can learn to play the TCG. And they actually have a story that you can follow along with it that teaches you step by step, kind of like Gateway does. And then you have Pokemon TCG Pocket. I think personally, this app will probably end up being a combination of both. TCG Pocket is insane. It is bringing people in every day to open packs of cards. And even if you're just opening packs of cards, that little bit of dopamine, we get it in real life from opening Lorcana packs. I can see that happening. And they have a premium pass. It seems like everything nowadays has a premium pass or a battle pass type
plus,
system. Yeah. I think that we'll see something along those lines, but then I don't think it'll be like Pixelborn to where you can go in and just build whatever decks you want. They will want to monetize this, and there will be individual packs that you can open within the game itself, and it'll be a separate collection of cards, but a digital collection in comparison to what you have in real life. So TCG Pocket came out in October of 2024, and within the first 3 weeks, made $120 million.
so much fun.
Marvel Snap, Marvel Snap, which is kind of another Disney IP, since it was released as of October of 2024, it's already made over $275 million in gross revenue. So they will definitely want to monetize this in any way, shape, or form that they can. It'll be a good way for people to learn, but there will be other ways that they can make money through it. And people are going to
It's
save
a
money.
it's a for profit entity. Like we enjoy it, but at the end of the day, it's a business. So it has to happen. And I think it's important to reiterate too that it is too early to tell. There are zero details beyond this. We are just speculating. But if we look at what other TCGs are doing, I would expect something similar, maybe a little bit of a Lorcana twang to it along those lines. So too early to tell.
Let me throw this out to you real quick. Marvel Snap began development in 2018. It released in early access in 2022, and then became full access in 23.
So 5 years.
But so it's 4 years in development. It was pretty much done when it came out because I've been playing it since early access. The thing is, we don't know if there's been any development behind the scenes before they done anything.
That is true.
So who knows? But
Something really cool that would come from it, though, are the little puzzle packs or puzzle pieces that we get in our Lorcana packs now.
Yeah.
Something crazy that TCG Pokemon Online did was they used to have those same little puzzle cardboard pieces, but they all had codes on them when you opened your packs IRL. So not only did you get your physical pack of cards, you can then take the code that was on that, go to the app, type in your code, and without having to spend money, that was another way for you to earn digital content or digital packs. And I could potentially see Lorcana going down that same route as well.
Very true. No, it's one of those things that I'm sure we'll probably see more job postings on in the future. I think it makes sense we have to get a producer first before we before we actually get into development and art. So it'll be interesting. This is something that I know a lot of folks in the community have been asking for since Pixelborn last year and whatnot. But a lot of people say that they'll take a little news about about a digital client rather than none. But kind of moving on from this, I know if for a lot of our newer viewers, you know that we are not a competitive, podcast. You're not going to find the meta here, but we have to acknowledge the community as a whole, and that being the North American Disney Lorcana Championship that just took place last weekend. Was it last weekend? I believe something like that.
Feels like an
X amount of
eternity
days.
ago.
Yeah, very recently at the time you're hearing this. But I think we have to take a look and see how things shook up there. Again, in order to participate in this championship event, you either had to get, I believe, in the top 16 or 32 of a Disney Lorcana Challenge event somewhere. I don't know what that cutoff was. Or you had to place inside the last chance qualifier the day before the main event. And in order to do that, you had to win every single game that you were potted up with. Uh, Pretty good mix of decks. I was surprised to see a lot of Ruby Sapphire. But Dylan, before we talk about what we saw, what are the stats around the inks? I see you have a note here around the stats of the inks that we saw.
Yeah, so I always look at time these DLCs come out just to
Yeah.
see like what ink color everybody seems to be playing the most of. The Ruby Sapphire you're talking about for sure was like the dominant ink color, the dominant decks
Majority,
that a
probably.
lot of people brought. Yeah. I think there were 126 people altogether that participated in this.
Yep.
So looking at it, there were 55 decks that ran Ruby, 57 that ran Sapphire, 49 that ran Steel, 46 that ran Amethyst, and then you had a huge drop off with 27 running Amber and 18 running Emerald.
Huh.
So to
Interesting.
start off with, yeah, exactly, interesting. When we looked previously, I think in our last podcast episode, we did that right after the Seattle DLC.
Or yeah, Seattle DLC or European.
Not
I
sure.
forget which
It
one
might
it
have
was.
been. Either way, we looked at it and we saw that Amber seemed to be like the weak link. Nobody was really using Amber for whatever reason. Now we're seeing only 18 people ran Emerald. Does that shock you in any way, shape, or form?
I think the people who played Emerald piloted it very, very well. I think that's why people like Zansaya did so well. It's definitely the top 16 breakdown was a lot different than what I thought because Ruby Amethyst uh, very much controlled the European Championship. And
Mhm.
spoiler, that's what got first place in the North American Championship. So, but before we uncover the whole Ruby Amethyst discussion, Blurple, two Blurple decks in the top 16. Very happy about that. Um, I will say this though, this isn't inside the notes, but one of the two players, I believe his name was Ryan. He recently made an Instagram, and he went on there and talked about like dealing with disappointment and stuff like that. And I just want to give like kudos to him because that was such a very transparent video that he made, and I honestly applaud him for talking about the other side of this very hyper competitive environments, just like the North American Championship. But two Blurple decks in the top 16. Dylan, what's your thoughts on where we stand in Ruby Amethyst? Like, I'm a little shocked about the lack of Emerald, but what's your 2 cents?
For one, I'm not shocked about Emerald. There were 18 decks altogether in the 126 that participated, and out of that 126, two of them, or out of the 18 decks out of 126, two of those decks ended up making the top 16.
Yeah.
But Ruby Amethyst is very interesting, and we talked about it in our very, very, very first Lorcana podcast. We asked the big question right after Shimmering Skies: what happens with Ruby Amethyst? Is it gone? Does it fall away? Because at the time, it did seem like it was falling off. But it just seems to be like it is the ink combination that will never go away. It will never fade. And it goes back 55 decks ran Ruby, and the other one, Amethyst. 46 ran yeah, 46 ran Amethyst. We've spoken very highly on Amethyst. Like me and you, we think it is the best ink color. The fact that you're able to draw cards, it does so much. You have those core pieces with your Mims, your Merlins, Diablo, like it's fantastic. And then the removal that Ruby presents itself with and has always had, Ruby Amethyst isn't going anywhere. And there was there was one Ruby Amethyst deck in the top 16.
And took the whole thing.
Took the whole thing. It's very interesting. And we can't necessarily say it is because of the ink color, because more so interesting was the gameplay.
It was nuts.
Yeah, the gameplay. The person who ran that deck, forget his name. Is it
Edmund, I believe?
Yeah.
Yes.
He was fantastic to watch. Because even though we don't necessarily compete at these high events or anything like that, we still enjoy watching these highly competitive events, because these are people who have mastered their craft, mastered the decks that they play, and he just flawlessly, it seemed like, understood exactly what to do at every moment.
Yeah. The last game, I believe it was 17-2. And get ready to go into the final game, and it just had an incredible comeback. It was, if you are a seasoned Lorcana player or if you are new to Lorcana, please go out and seek that final matchup. It's best of 5. I'm going to see if we can link it inside the description below. But just to see that level of methodical thinking about this game. It was absolutely phenomenal, and it doesn't necessarily just apply to Ruby Amethyst or hyper competitive. I think watching the best people play this game can help you, learn the game as well. But it's still kicking. I doubted it. I had an inkling of a doubt for a second, but then it just came right back. It's a powerful color combination. I would fully expect to see a lot of it into Worlds, but we don't know what next set consists of. So I think,
but it's not a broken combination either, because he actually produced all of his matchups that he had the entire weekend, and the breakdown of whether he went 2-0, 1-2, 2-1, and there was a matchup against it seemed to be a Still Song deck that he did go 0-2.
Yep.
So every deck still has its weaknesses as well.
Right. I think we are in terms of just overall just health of ink combinations, I think we're in a pretty healthy state right now. Much healthier than where we were with Bucky. We won't talk about Bucky, but very happy with the way that the ink color combinations have been. Every ink combination has their own strengths and weaknesses, and yeah, it was a fun event to watch, and I'm very curious to see what we have at Worlds. But relating to a little bit of competitive. This is a topic of conversation that Dylan and John and myself have had many times over. We are now coming off the first weekend of the store set championships that are taking place on every weekend between this coming weekend, the 18th and the 19th. through, I believe, early February. And we wanted to include this because, again, this isn't a competitive meta discussion podcast, but what we do care about is those who are newer to the game and those who might be going to local game shops for the very first time. So if you're unfamiliar, the set championships, any store that can host league and whatnot, they can have a set championship where it is basically a pay-in amount. Stores vary, and basically you play, depending on how many players, you play X amount of matches. Usually it's 5, I believe, up to 32 players, and then for the top 8, you get rewarded with a exclusive promo enchanted card commemorating you making the top 8 in that event. And then the top 2 go on to receive playmats, with the first place winner of the entire store event receiving the champion text at the very top of the playmat. And this goes back to our gateway conversation because we've had a lot of folks get into their first trading card game, and it's Lorcana. And I'm sure there are people out there who are mustering up the confidence to go to a store for the first time and participate in this competitive event. And first off, if you're one of those people, good on you. Phenomenal. I'm happy for that. But Dylan and I want to kind of to talk about some of the vibe at these things to potentially look out for whenever it comes to set championships. And we want to reiterate that these are still friendly environments. However, I think it's important to note that folks are there to win. You have a very high probability of coming across the most perfect, flawless decks that we saw played at the North American Championship. So a lot of folks are running near meta or completely flawless decks, and really, there's going to be a couple rogue decks, a lot of deck strategies that we see come up. But these people are going to be very strong players, are going to know their decks, and they're going to come to win. And we've seen that, at not only at our store but also stores all over. But Dylan, any other thoughts around, if it's for somebody listening who's going to their first set champ?
Yeah, so even if you go to League weekly,
Yeah.
this isn't the same vibe as Preston said. You will see faces that you're not familiar with. There are people who don't want to necessarily say take this seriously because I think we all take Lorcana seriously,
Yeah,
but the
fine.
competitive play and championships in general, that title alone of championships, there are groups of people who take that extremely seriously, and they're not just casual players who come play this game because they enjoy Disney or they enjoy the game as a whole, but they make this their livelihood. Somehow there are groups who have the finances and the time that they can plan out their weekends and they can try to hit as many stores as they possibly can. And that's good for them. It helps the local game stores and it helps the LGSs tremendously financially outside of the money that we give them league every week. But it is a different beast.
I
And
would
we don't. Go
go
ahead.
ahead. Sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah,
Discord lag, right?
yeah. We just don't want people to be stirred the wrong direction or go into it not playing at league or only playing league casually and then experiencing this for their first time. It's like, heck, we did the Inklands set championship. We talked about this earlier too. And it was our first set championship. This was our first TCG. We came into it. And back then you had to make top 4 instead of top 8 in order to get the promo prizes. And me and you played for that 4th spot
Of course,
place.
it was for
Of
the
course.
spot in the top 4.
If it was like it was now, we would have both made top 8. But we did that, and that was our first experience, but we still walked away with a high. We were like, "Man, this was fun. We're good at this." And then we go into the next set championship, kind of feeling the same way, and it was definitely humbling. Of
That's a good way to put it.
it was very humbling of what the competitive is, and it's like, okay, maybe we're not as serious with this stuff as these other people are.
Yeah, no, it was humbling It was definitely a good confidence boost knowing that we at least had that first one under our belts. But I think it's important to know that we need competitive gameplay in TCGs. Without competitive, we also wouldn't have Disney Lorcana Challenge, an event that I absolutely loved. But just know that your usual group, you're going to see faces that you've never seen before, and that's perfectly okay. People really enjoy the competitive nature of it, and we really encourage anyone that if you want to go and give your shot. I have seen broom decks take top 8 and whatnot. So just expect the vibe a little bit, and more importantly, win or lose, have fun. And the fact that you have the confidence to go to a set championship, win or lose, is very admirable. So there is still a very good part of me that really enjoys competitive gameplay. I really enjoy watching the Disney World kind of challenge events. However, looking at how many people we have seen in Facebook groups and on Reddit and on social media getting into their first card game, let alone Lorcana, we just wanted to kind of give just a friendly word of wisdom that the vibe is different. It's going to be a competitive event, and as a competitive event should be. We're not saying that these events don't need to be competitive because that it's kind of in the title of the event.
I mean,
But just
that's what League is for.
yeah, so just know that going into it, and just have fun, win or lose, and whatnot. So those are happening now through the end of early February. Sorry, John.
I'll give you my experience because Inklands was when I first came to League. So it'd be February. So I did the 4 weeks of League and then thought, I'll do set championships. Why not? Yeah, that'll be fun. And I did horribly in it, but I had fun. The second League championship we had, I was a little wiser, a little better player, had a little better deck. Thought, all right, I think I can do better this time. I did exactly the same as I did last time, and I walked away mad because it was people that I had not seen before, and I did not know how to handle that at the time. So I drove. For those that don't know, I drive 1 hour one way for League on Saturday and drive 1 hour back home. So I had an hour to drive back after sitting in the store for 8 hours and getting thumped to cesspool or just brood on what had happened. And I think I was messaging Preston on the way home with voice text, just for a solid hour.
But it's important that's normal. It's a competitive event, yeah. And it's
But go into it knowing that it's like the first one that I went to in Inklands, the very first one. It not that it wasn't competitive, but it was different. Now it's and each one gets different that I just don't do them anymore because I'm 48 years old. I don't need that kind of stress in my life for a day. I just don't. I'm 48 years old, overweight, and I don't need to have stress. I don't need any more stress than I already have. But
we play this game to relieve stress and whatnot.
Right, yeah.
And a lot of people.
But yeah, don't go into it with the attitude of, all right, this is League. I'm going to do good. And
it's a different vibe.
Yeah, you'll save yourself trouble if you just go in without that mentality to begin with. So.
Yeah, I think that's the whole point of this conversation is we've done it a few times now. And in the beginning, we were those new players because if you don't come from another TCG and you're not used to this environment, which those are the people that we're trying to speak to, are the ones who are doing this for the first time. We just don't want other people to walk away angry or mad or upset at themselves, for the most part, about how they played because they expected to perform a certain way and had no clue what they were getting into. Because this is a different beast, and there's nothing wrong with it. We completely support competitive play as well. We prefer League, but without competitive, this game might not even exist anymore.
Right. There are people looking at the stats around participation at DLCs and everything else going, oh, like this is actually a thriving community and whatnot. So yeah, I think that's a good pin in it. just some friendly advice, just know that it's a different beast, a different type of vibe. No one will be a jerk to you. I don't know how else to say it. Like no one, it's not that's not going on, but just prepare to play really good players with really powerful, really flawless decks. So again, if you want advice on how to play certain decks and colors, there's all sorts of content on YouTube and Reddit and everywhere else you can find that. You're not going to find that here, but instead, we debated about including this in the show for a minute, and then we decided we would because we just wanted those who are coming off the holidays, going, "Hey, there's a set championship at this store that I've never been to." Just kind of heads up. There's a few more weeks of it happening, but if you decide to do it, good luck to you. Truly wish everyone luck at set championships and whatnot. I've talked about this on my channel. I'm personally not a big fan of the Scar promo card, but my wife went nuts over it, and yeah, it's beautiful art. The artists do a really great job doing those alternate arts and whatnot.
Learn from those good
Learn.
players who do this regularly, and they've been doing it for a while, who do run those flawless decks or whatever. If anything, even if you're not winning matches, enjoy yourselves and
Yeah.
learn from their play.
And I'm sure talk to people. Once you play an opponent, like a good member of the Lorcana community will happily go, yeah, like this is why I did this. Like I did the same thing at DLC. My first match, we talked about the game, and he gave me some pointers and whatnot. And that's the way this community should be. So go and learn. If you just want to go just to see how you do and learn, that's awesome. Like truly incredible. Dylan, kick off
On
the
the op-
next.
So speaking of a little bit of meta and the North American Championship there, and those two Blurple decks that made top 16 that you were super, super, super excited about, um, we are once again going to spotlight and talk about a couple of different decks that we have been running. And I think you talked about your Blurple deck last podcast, but that is your bread and butter, that is your baby. How is it coming along, Preston? And how does it compare to the two decks that we did see make top 16?
Yeah. So again, I'll keep mine short because I feel like I've been chatting for a while. But Blurple is probably one of the very few decks right now in the game that I'm truly comfortable with and playing. So if you've listened over the past couple episodes, you've probably seen a flux of this a little bit. But I like to give my own spice to it. So after watching DLC, and again, I don't run meta decks at League. I really don't do that. If I do, I normally do some sort of like off meta own season spice and everything. And it has its weaknesses. And but my Blurple C deck, I mentioned last episode that Genie wasn't in here. Guess what? Genie's here. Genie is he's here. I'm running three just because I only have three. I know we've talked about Tadashi Hamada as well for the ramp mechanic here. I have ditched Tadashi Hamada, which that is the card where if he is banished, he goes to the inkwell. The top card of your deck goes to your inkwell. Tipo's back. Tipo is back along with 4 copies of Sail of the Azurite Sea. And I can't let go of my Merlin Intellectual Visionary. I have since dropped the Cusco for item and location control in favor of adding it back in things like Merlin Crab, also adding things like what else? Yeah, Merlin Crab and Genie. So it is still fun. I know a lot of folks that run Amethyst love their Chernobog's followers and magic brooms. I'm still currently running Rafiki just because I want that firepower. The Challenger 3 kind of just sits there. And yes, the big Rafiki did go. He's gone. No more. But
Great decision.
great decision. It was fun for like the 2 times I was able to get him out. But it's a really fun deck, and it has weaknesses. Had some really good games yesterday. I played against the Ruby Amethyst last night, and it was very controlling. I think our first match went to like the 35-minute mark. Like it was nuts. We were controlling. But this is probably the final form of my Blurple for the set. If anything, I might swap out the Rafikis. Again, if you're listening on Spotify, you're seeing the visuals on YouTube as well. But if anything changes, it might be a hot swap between Rafiki and a few others, maybe Magic Brew or Chernobogs. But I am personally pretty comfortable with where my Blurple deck is at. I have also been playing around with Steel Song, but what was that, Dylan?
I'm surprised to see Cusco gone, to be honest.
It sucked a little bit last night. I have him inside the same box that the deck is sleeved in. I might end up running 62. And the reason why I might run 62 and add him back in is because of the Merlin Intellectual Visionary. If I am in a situation that requires me to go looking for location or item removal, I can shift the Merlin, very expensive, but I can go find my Cusco.
But it
So
works, and I've played against that, and I've seen it firsthand how well that Merlin works. And whenever I play against people so many times, there's like certain cards that just kind of stick with me, and I'm like, that card represents that player. And I will say that Merlin has become the card that represents you.
I love it so much. It almost, and for those unfamiliar, especially the audio listeners, it is a Sapphire Merlin that you can shift for 5. And if you shift him on a Merlin, you can pick up your deck and look for any card and put it into your hand and shuffle your deck. There is no other mechanic in the game that allows that. And I think that is so it's just so much fun. He's also a beefy body. He's a 3 strength, 7 willpower, questing for 2. There are many a times where I have shifted him, found a let it go, and just sung it with Merlin. Very versatile. You do lose the underlying crab, rabbit, or goat. So that was one of the first things when I was figuring this out. I was like, he's not leaving play. So if you're looking at this Merlin, just know that, if you shift on top of a rabbit, you don't get the draw. The Merlin has evolved, if we're going to talk about Pokemon for a second, but it's fun. It's a lot of fun, and I'm very happy with the, Blurple this set. I will probably continue to play Blurple for as long as it remains somewhat viable. I'm not saying meta viable, but viable. But one
Let
thing,
it be known. Let it be known, though, you have been working on Blurple for months. Like previous sets, you were
or
trying to
still
make
as I
Blurple
started,
work. Yeah, so this isn't something that you're doing now as the meta changes and it's becoming more viable, and we see other people are playing Blurple and it's in top 16. This has been a passion project that you have been working on, and it's finally coming to fruition, and we're seeing other people see the vision as well.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I've learned a lot from watching Blurple players like Ryan. Like that kind of inspired me to add Crab back in, because one of the weak points with this deck is removal. We struggle with removal unless it is a Hades or Let It Go, or else. I guess we can kind of control with the Shift Elsa. We have some pretty weak bodies, so things like Merlin Crab to give things Challenger 3 on entry and exit makes sense. That turns a fox into a seven willpower. So it's beefy. So I'm happy with it. I'm gonna stick with it. Merlin's not going anywhere. It's been fun. But one thing I'm going to chime in Dylan's here, because Dylan Dylan has one of my favorite cards I own none of, and that is Robin Hood Shift. Talk us through your deck. We got Hero's Guard here.
Yeah, so one of my passion projects, as and always, like from the beginning, is Bodyguard. I love the ability of bodyguards, and I think we've talked about it in the podcast as well. Every set that comes out, that's one of the first things that I look for and check is how many bodyguards came out in this set? How can I add them?
You can only have 4 Plutos in your deck. I'm sorry.
So in the past, I've ran Amber Steel bodyguard decks. But not Steel Song, but Amber Steel bodyguard decks. And then I fell in love with this new Baymax card that allows your characters to heal, the Armored Companion. It's when you play this character and whenever he quests, you may remove up to 2 damage from chosen character, and you gain 1 lore for each 1 damage removed this way. So people have
Very
to
tight.
attack through bodyguards. They're going to have damage on them. So the whole idea of this Heroes Guard deck was to try to play around Baymax. And I will say, even though we don't necessarily build competitive decks, we do have to keep in mind the competitive decks that do exist. And we saw North American Championship, the most used combination was the Ruby Sapphire. We see Sisu, we see the removal, and I really tried to focus in on that meta deck in particular and how that matchup would play with this deck. So we have the one drop Robin Hood in the beginning. I think that's like my only one drop character I have early on. I also have Paul Sickle and Fortisphere for card draw mostly, and to just keep healing my bodyguards. Um, we have the 2-drop Calhoun and a 2-drop Kita. Calhoun and Robin Hood, and that Robin Hood shift is for a early game presence of board control. They are used as pawns. I absolutely love the ability that they both have. That big shift Robin Hood and that Calhoun has. That whenever they banish a character, you gain 2 lore. It really makes people think, and it almost makes them not want to quest early because they're afraid of you taking their character out and being able to get the 2 lore off of it. I also have 2 copies of Fire the Cannon, again, just for early play removal. If I go second, you drop something out turn 1, whether it's a Chernobog's Follower or Magic Broom, a Diablo, whatever, I can just hit them with Fire the Cannon early until my next turn whenever I can play a 2-drop. As for bodyguards, I have the Steel Kita, the 3-drop Hercules, 3-drop the Prince. We do have the Pluto, and we have a 3-drop Little John, who's very, very, very important in this deck. The 3-drop Little John gains evasive on your turn. That is a huge weakness to this deck, is evasive. There's not much here that can hit it besides your Fire the Cannons and your other removal, but the fact that he can hit evasive on your turn is really good. Then we have a little bit of spice in here, just a couple of cards that you don't really see very often. Yeah, you have the Flavorsome for card draw. We're playing 3 copies of Ling. So Ling gives all of your hero characters +1 attack. Going back to that Ruby removal, a lot of times with Brawl and other things, if you have characters that have 2 attack or less, they're just not going to exist anymore playing against that matchup. Those characters are gone. So playing Ling, almost every character that I have in this deck is a hero character. So they're all going to benefit from that and get the +1 attack. That also goes on to Phil. Phil, the 4-drop, who gives all of your hero characters Challenger +1. And now not only can I have +1 attack from Ling, but I'm also getting Challenger +1, making all of my characters even stronger. But then he's almost like a passive lore character, to where anytime I play a hero character, you're gaining 1 lore. So Little Robin Hood, Little Kita, Calhoun, all of them, everybody is a hero. Some of the big pieces of this that really bring this deck together is the big Hercules that you like. He's got resist +2, he quest for 2, hits really, really, really hard. Then you have the big Little John. Gotta find his name real quick. Is Little John the Resourceful Outlaw? This is a card that a lot of people don't look at. He is a hero himself, and you can shift him on the other Little John. He loses Bodyguard, but while this character is exerted, your characters with Bodyguard gain resist +1 and +1 lore. So, playing all the bodyguards I have, if I can shift him out, quest with him, attack with him, do whatever, all of the rest of them are now going to gain +1 lore, and they can quest for even more. Sardine Can.
This threw me off. I was like, what's a
Sardine
sardine can?
Can is a 4-cost item that has existed since set 2. So while your characters are exerted, they gain ward. bodyguards want to be exerted. So any kind of removal or let it go or Hades, anything like that would not work against my bodyguards if Sardine Can was on the board. Thought that was a really unique and cool item that a lot of people don't run. Same with the location that I'm using, being Winter Camp. It's that passive lore of 1 every turn, but I can also use it to heal my characters when I quest there. Quest while there, they get 2 health back, but if it's a hero character, which we've already said most of this deck is, you're getting 4 health back instead. So you can almost keep your characters alive unless your opponent's knocking them out in like 1 turn. You're just keeping your characters alive this whole time. And then the Piece of Resistance, the best card in this deck, and John can advocate for this one. And he's kind of like a bodyguard in his is Beast Selfless Protector. This guy is insane, does not get enough love, and people do not they're underestimating this card by so much. He is a 2/8. He has 8 willpower. He only quests for 1. But whenever one of your other characters would be dealt damage, that many damage counters goes on this character instead. So if you can get
It effectively moves the damage, right?
What's that?
It effectively moves the damage.
Yeah. So if I have a bodyguard out on the field, you have to attack through that bodyguard to hit anything else. When you attack that bodyguard instead of it receiving the damage, all of the damage will go on to that beast. If I attack you with one of my characters and I would receive damage, all of that damage would go onto beast.
And then you're healing them with things like Winter Camp, Popsicle,
and Baymax, who when you quest or play Baymax, you can remove up to 2 damage from a character, and you gain 1 lore for each damage removed that way. So the combination of Baymax Armored Companion and Beast Selfless Protector is insane.
That's nuts. And I've actually played against this deck, and it made me have a deeper appreciation for the Pluto just because of it. But Dylan is right, because I've known Dylan since November of 23, which is crazy. But one of the very first decks was around Bodyguard and whatnot too. It was once Dylan got bit by the bodyguard love, it was just, I want more. Give me all the bodyguards. So
Protect the pig.
protect the pig. That was a Amber Steel deck Dylan had there a couple months back. But I love the fact that you are using the beast. And what's the subline on the beast that absorbs the damage? I forget the name of him. Not hard.
Shield Another. So it's Shield Another. He is a Selfless Protector. He's Selfless Protector. Yep.
Okay, so yeah.
The only downfall with him is it's not a may clause. It has to happen. So whenever one of your other characters would be dealt damage, put that many damage counters onto this character instead. If there's ever a situation where you want to keep Beast around for whatever reason, and you would rather the damage go onto another character, it sucks because you don't get to go ahead and delegate that and let the damage go onto the other character instead. It's forced onto Beast.
So let me ask you this. Not to get sciencey, but this is something I just thought about. Let's say if a bodyguard, I don't know the situation, but let's say if Pluto bodyguard is on the field, and you also have Beast on the field as well. And let's say Pluto has resist because of Cogsworth or something like that. I would assume that the resist still applies, and whatever the amount of damage after the resist would apply to Beast. Or is this one of those things where if you Zeus another character, Beast gets 5 damage and it ignores resist? Like, help me understand how resist would come into play.
So the resist would apply first, because if you're, let's say, the prince, because we're running the prince as a bodyguard on here who has resist +1, or even Calhoun who has resist +1. If you would have to attack through the prince while he's in bodyguard, and you hit with a Diablo who is a 1/1. That resist would still apply. Or if you hit with something else that would attack for 2, instead of it doing 2 damage, it would only do 1 damage. That calculation would happen, so the damage that would be dealt to the prince would now go on to Beast.
I
The
love it.
resist does still apply.
I figured it would because the only thing that gets by resist is actually moving damage, like Mama Oni, Juju, stuff like that, physically moving the counters. I kind of figured, but I knew you probably had thought through that. But no, I love it. It's a good level of spice.
Another interesting thing, which I saw, I think, back in Rise of the Floodborn with this card, everybody was running Grab Your Swords at the time.
Yep.
So even with Beast having 8 willpower, if a Grab Your Swords would be played, he absorbs all damage. All damage. Even if it would pass up his 8 willpower, if I have 5 characters on the field, besides Beast, and each one of them were to receive 2 damage,
Total of
Beast
10.
would absorb all 10. It would go on him. He would die, but everyone else would live.
Because it's not like I'm gonna call it the bag, but it's like yes, 2 damage to everything, but Beast dies, and then the excess, like there is no excess in that situation. It is just applied across the board.
Yeah.
And if you're like Beast getting hit at the same time with 10 damage, 2 damage to 5 characters.
Yeah, he's a bodyguard in his own right without even having the tech.
Literally, a bodyguard in his own right. Definitely a target for Medusa because it's what, 3 willpower? Is that, or 3 strength? Sorry.
He's 2.
2. Okay. So big Sisu Kit target, but
unless Ling is on the field.
And you can buff it with Ling. I like it. No, Dylan has worked this deck for a while, and I'm sad I didn't get to play against this version of it last night. But I know I looked over and I saw Dylan and John had his hands like just on his forehead, and they were like pointing at they were big braining mathing this thing at one point, and it was I didn't watch the game because I was in my own match, but it looked like they were having fun over there.
I don't do math. That's the bad thing.
No, that's fun, Dylan. I love this. It's a good. Sapphire Steel has been a thing for a while, but this is purely off meta, and I love it so much.
And I think this rounds out my entire set through Azurite Sea, because the first time we met during Azurite Sea, I ran a Ruby Amber deck that was Princess Pirate locations. Then I ran a Amethyst Emerald Fairy deck, and now I'm finishing it out with all the ink colors running Sapphire Steel.
Yep. I know this isn't the notes, but before we move on to kind of like some fun community things and whatnot, and this is really a question for both Dylan and John, but how do we think Azurite Sea treated the pirates? Because we see pirate decks quite a bit. We have a pirate deck, but I know we were really excited for Azurite and the pirates and just the buff it was going to get with all these different characters. But now that we are kind of at the 11th hour of Azurite, how do we think the set went for pirates?
They got treated better than inventors.
That's true. That is true. It buffed it quite a bit, but I think it comes down to what we see in our local communities, because I know John was running it. I know my wife's running it. So I didn't see it a whole lot. Maybe it's just a geographical region thing. I don't know.
It didn't change the meta.
No, that's what I was just getting ready to say. It didn't change the meta at all. But it's still fun to play.
Oh, it's so much fun to play. So much fun to play.
And it's like I told Dylan last night. And I think you were sitting there too when I said it. This whole time, Jolly Roger was a set 3 card, and I never cared for it until this set.
Yep.
Because now I put Jolly Roger down and put a Pete down, and all of a sudden he becomes a Maui on turn 3 if I need him to.
It's scary. Yeah. I was a recipient of a Pete
but
last weekend.
Still, my my card of the set is Mickey Mouse Pirate Captain. That's still my card of the set with the shift 3, and then whenever this character quest, a chosen pirate character gets +2 attack and takes no damage and challenges his turn.
Mine's still Maleficent Staff, and I haven't even got to play it.
No, but your son got to play it. Holy fright!
Oh, we knew he got to. We'll save that for a sidebar. But let's just say Dylan created a monster of an offspring that has a love for Maleficent staffs, and let's just say 12 lore was accumulated in one turn, and it had the entire room just completely laughing and clapping. It was just so cool to see play through. But we'll save that for another day.
But going back to this conversation about pirates, I think it'll translate really well with our next topic, with this local community stuff. Yeah, we said that pirates didn't change the meta, but I don't necessarily think that a single tag will come along and change it. It's mostly for those local community league type fun decks, which we absolutely love. So we're talking about that deck that I built that we just take Bodyguard, and we're going to build a whole deck around Bodyguard. You have decks that will take a tag where you're just building around pirates. We just put up a short about the Tigger tag and about how in the future we may see decks that are just Tigger. That would be really, really cool to see, I think. But outside of these big set championships and the national championship, there is something that Ravensburger hasn't spoke much about. We haven't talked about as a talking point on the podcast at all, and it's super, super interesting. And I regret one of my answers on a previous podcast episode of what we look forward to the most going into 2025. I think this is it. And it's the Lorcana Quest fan events. And I had to do a little bit of research into this because they're kind of quiet right now about it. There's not a lot of information.
I think it was announced at D23, and that was it.
Yep, at the D23 2024, they had a panel, a Lorcana panel, titled Disney Lorcana Trading Card Game, Past, Present, and Future. This being the future part of it. The panel consisted of Ryan Miller and Steve Warner, then the Global Community and Engagement Manager, Rochelle Brady, and the coolest one was the Executive Creative Director at Walt Disney Imagineering.
That's a big title.
Yeah, that's a huge title, and it says a lot about this game with this guy being here. I mean, this guy he was responsible for the development of new experiences and attractions at Disney parks. He led the team that brought us Avengers Campus, Hyperspace Mountain, and Season of the Force, which is at almost every park right now. So it's crazy to me that they're looking at it. Disney is looking at it. Imagineers are looking at this card game. And they recognize how big it is and how close the relationship is that Ravensburger has crafted. It's not like they were just throwing an IP like we see sometimes. I hate to say that because I'm a big fan of Warner Brothers, but a lot of times when you own an IP, there are companies that will throw the IP out to a company, they'll sell it, and then whoever bought it will just go out and do whatever they want with. It seems like the relationship between Disney themselves and Ravensburger it's really, really serious. Not just with the cards, but everything going forward. We see that they're hosting these national championships and the world championships at the parks. And something really cool that they actually announced there at this D23 Expo was these new promo cards. These Lorcana promo cards. They announced them there, and then I think the first time that we saw them out in the wild was at the European Championship in December. The first one was Mickey Mouse True Friend. It's a card that we've had since set 1. But what makes this card special as a promo is it has a signature line on the card. A lot of people, they're already taking their Lorcana cards and have for a while. They take them out to the parks, they get them autographed, they get them signed. You take them to the artist, and they're having the artist sign them. These promo cards have a signature line on it specifically made for where you can go and get them signed and autographed. Oh, that was really cool and really neat. And I think I've talked in the past about the Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom card game, about how it was kind of like Disney's predecessor. And if anybody played that at all, whenever you went into the Magic Kingdom, you could go over to the fire station and they would give you a pack of cards whenever you first entered. And I could see this kind of being like the buttons that you get when you go to Disney or anything. You could just go over to that fire station or the welcome center and you can just get this promo card, take it with you throughout the day for when you go meet these characters and have them autographed. That's just one park experience in particular. But something really cool that came about this is the idea of quests. The two big major things that make up Lorcana are challenging and questing. We have the challenges already, all the DLCs, the national championships, but now they're looking at expanding it into quests for the casual players who go to League and the collectors. And the way they explained it, it was kind of going to be like a checklist of things that could happen, not only within the parks, but at your local game stores as well. And maybe it would consist of multiplayer games, co op play. We know that the cards exist, and they have existed in the beginning of this game since set one. But there are certain ones that were designed specifically for co op play with the way that they read or their ability.
Opponents, plural.
Yeah. But with these Lorcana Quest events, they're supposed to make it to where you're playing multiplayer games or co-op play to earn points. And you'll have this checklist of, well, I performed this quest, let me check it off. Or I've been to a park and I've had this character sign this card, let me check this off. And then you're supposed to receive rewards based on how many different quests that you perform. Again, there's not a lot of information about it, but as a person who enjoys deck building, who enjoys the community aspect of Lorcana, this is super, super exciting. And it gives somebody, and it gives kids something to do within Lorcana outside of just these competitive events. And then even at competitive events, you went to Atlanta and you saw all the side stuff going on. This could become what those side stuff consist of.
Oh, 100%. Not only do we have the side of Vince, but we have Ryan Miller and everyone kind of signing cards and whatnot. Then as we got more and more DLCs in, they actually made it like a raffle thing, like meet Ryan Miller, stuff like that. But Mickey did make an appearance at the North America Championship, and he was also out signing cards as well. So not only in European, but also in North America too. But I think we even saw some people on the live stream playing with signed cards and whatnot, either from the artists or from the characters. So, yeah, I'm surprised that we haven't heard anything about this. And granted, it's a pretty big logistical step because, well, just think about it. Mickey has to learn how to sign the cards and handle these cards, and know what Lorcana is and whatnot. So there's a logistical side of it where we have to go to the boss and go, hey, here's a Lorcana card. Here's how you can sign a Lorcana card. So I don't know. Like it would be nice to see these available. It would be nice to hear something about this. I could see them distributing these in the parks and whatnot. This is the only one that has a signature line, by the way. So maybe they're looking to develop other ones before they release into the wild. So I think it's fun. I think it could definitely enhance somebody's next park experience in a sense, because I'm already thinking like heck, like I'm thinking cruise lines and stuff like that. Like the possibilities are endless, and it's a big sign that someone in the Walt Disney Company with a title over Imagineering is looking at this, because I've always said I would love to see this on cruise ships, because for those who have never taken a Disney cruise before, we've been on two, soon to be three in 2026. Basically, what they have is they have an itinerary of events, and it would be like, karaoke in this room, trivia in this room, crafts in this room, and you can filter by age range. We need like a Lorcana like pack rush or something like that. I'm not saying when you have a big tournament on a ship or something like that, but something as simple as pack rush or something like that. Whether I doubt it's included. That's a lot of products, but I really like the fact that they're looking to enhance and bring a new element of social to this game outside, and it could even relate back to game shops, like you said, the checklist. Like, what if you could get a exclusive pin by completing all the quests, and that could be going to the Magic Kingdom and having Mickey sign a card, and then you go back to your shop and go, hey, I have this, and they're like, okay, cool, check, you have X amount of points, you check that off or whatever. So I I it's going to happen, but there's just a lot of movement right now with a lot of things Ravensburger is doing with the game right now. They got a lot of things going on at the exact same time.
Yeah, and they want this at the local level, from what I understand. It's not
Yeah,
just the park.
right.
They have somebody from Walt Disney Imagineering reiterating that they want this to be park experiences. But
Okay. Yep.
the big takeaway is that they want co-op play and multiplayer play within stores at the local level, and they want separate quest events. I'm not sure if it'll be two separate things, whether we'll still have League and then they'll have quest events as well. If these quest events will be kind of like set championships where they just happen once every so often throughout League.
Mhm.
I know in League that when they send out these kits, not only do they have it to where you're supposed to earn points from playing and winning matches, but a lot of stores, I don't think ours does it, but you can earn points from wearing Disney apparel, showing somebody how to play Lorcana for the first time, using certain cards whenever you play, which I think if local game stores would do that more often and they would use those points, you wouldn't necessarily have people showing up and playing meta decks like they do in the first place, because they would be focused on earning points by playing specific cards or combination of cards that came out in the sets. I mean, that's a side conversation, but that's again a logistical thing that you talked about, of trying to get these local game stores that you're already at, that you're sending out these kits to for League, you're sending out kits for set championships and these prizes for set championships. Now you're wanting to create a whole other separate event that you're going to have to reach out to all of these local game stores once again. Look at the Bucky promo that came out.
Yeah.
I mean, our store didn't receive the Bucky promos. I mean, there's a lot of logistical stuff behind it that they're going to have to do, and I hope we hear more information about it, because it goes back to what we said about the virtual tabletop.
Mm-hmm.
Any information is better than none, and I think Rebecca Quest may have said something about this recently as well, about how quiet Ravensburger has been. The fact that it's great that we know the next two sets that are coming up, but there was no
Lorecast scheduled.
no Lorecast to talk about it and discuss what's going on in the future. That's slightly worrisome, because again, we are on a timeline of how many sets are coming out. But it also helps knowing that they have Imagineers backing them, and they have Disney money backing them for the virtual tabletop and stuff. That makes me hold on to hope that this game is going to stick around way longer than they originally expected it to.
I mean, we all hope at the end of the day. Like, I think it goes back to the last episode. We said that in theory, if they didn't get renewed, we wouldn't be talking about this stuff right now. So there's a lot of logistics going on, and speaking of logistics, it kind of ties in nicely with our next point. New Lorcana stuff just came out of the blue like 2 nights ago. So there's a lot of moving parts. I hope that they give us, like, and maybe they're saving it for Lorecast. I don't know, but kind of creating a checklist. We have no World's date. We have no DLC 2025 dates, which we're approaching the time last year where we got them. We have, and speaking on that alone, we have people holding out on making time off requests from work, and we have people holding off on making travel accommodations, like myself. I always try to, get in my time off request as soon as I can, but there's this one event I want to do this year. It's DLC. We don't know. So there's a lot of things holding out. Quest is still, it's been announced, but it's still kind of just hanging on. But something that kind of was unexpected was, speaking of merchandising, we have kind of product coming out of the blue. And it kind of brings us to our next point, being the Lorcana merchandising kind of section. I don't know if you want to call it. But 2 nights ago, just what was it, like 11 o'clock p.m. Eastern or something like that? Like, they posted that there is a gift set or a bundle pack at Costco that has 2 starter decks from Into the Inklands, 4 booster packs of Into the Inklands, and an exclusive Captan Mickey from the Pirate Captain, with the card that John was talking about, an exclusive promo card with foiling and this red border around it. We had no idea it was coming. It just came out of the blue. Now, if I remember correctly, this is similar to the first chapter gift sets we had, except it didn't have a promo, right?
So the first chapter, was it just first chapter packs in it?
It was this first chapter, 2 starter decks.
2 starter decks, 4 packs, and that was it. No promo.
That was it.
Yeah, and that was only at Target. And everybody lost their mind on Black Friday.
Yeah, only at Target. So, but now here we have Into the Inklands. So it's kind of interesting. I wonder why they skipped Floodborne. I don't know,
Right?
but
Because that was the best set so far.
right. Like, Floodborne was a lot of fun, but I don't know. And I'm not trying to understand from a business perspective. I'm not trying to understand why they did this in a sense. I think it's cool that we have a Mickey promo. I want this promo. Have you all bought it? Because I'm kind of just like, do I just buy the single? Do I get the whole thing? Where are y'all's heads at?
I have not purchased it. I've seen the promo. The promo looks cool. It's great, but I don't need any more Inkland product. And I don't really feel like spending close to $50 after shipping for a promo card.
Yep. And Inkland stuff that we don't need. But $44.99 US. If you are not a Costco member, I believe John said it was a $2 surcharge or something like that.
47 something, but free shipping. So.
But free shipping.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like I did it. It was like 47 something. I didn't click the add to cart or the purchase button, but I did see
it's in your cart.
It's still there, but we don't. For those who don't know, we live in West Virginia. There is not a Costco in this state. The closest Costco to me is in Columbus, and that's 2 hours away. It's 3 hours for you guys. So
That's true.
We live in the boonies.
The big question I have with this is: does anybody know if they are limiting how many someone can purchase?
I don't know. They're still available on the website right now. They have not sold out, and I don't see I didn't see a thing that said it was limited 5 or whatever. So,
in the world we live in, I mean, we went through it. We saw it in COVID. Whenever it comes to, especially consoles like the Switch, the PS5, and everything as they were releasing, and even the first chapter, how hard it was to get your hands on. Maybe that's why the one at Target kind of blew up, because it was first chapter, and part of me appreciates the way that they're going about it if this is how they're going to release product.
I stand corrected. It was limited 1 transaction. 1 per customer.
Perfect.
Sorry.
This is the way that it needs to be done. If they can limit it to 1 to 2 per person per transaction,
okay,
that's how it should be done.
Let me change it again. Limit of 1 transaction with a maximum of 10 units per membership per day.
Oh, well, that's a little different.
I scrolled down and saw the rest of it. I'm like, oh, well, it's limited 1 of transactions, so I can do 1 a transaction, but I can only do 10 transactions a day.
So you would have to buy 1, walk out, go back in.
Well, these aren't in the store. These aren't in the store. They're only online.
Only online.
Yeah,
okay.
Only online.
So interesting. So
but it still makes it difficult for scalpers,
right?
Which is the point that I was trying to get at. And the fact that they didn't pre-announce this means that there wasn't a pre-order system for this for scalpers to go in and pre-order as many as they could and then turn around and sell the product online at a markup. So,
And
I like the way they did it.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely a fan too. I think why they're releasing these products too is think about again. It's kind of the theme, but think about all the people who just got Gateway for the holidays.
Yep.
So I think this is a good product, a good almost like a mega booster pack in a sense. If you are newer to the game and looking to bolster your collection, then these are phenomenal values. I don't know if you were to buy each of these individually, if it will come under MSRP, like you get a slight discount for buying all this together. I don't know. I don't know what that math is, but that's probably why they're releasing these products, and I'm glad they're doing it. I'm just very curious why they skip Bloodborne. I want to know.
I want to give you another update. I am sorry. This product is available in store for pickup. Okay. I'm just rolling through the local stores in Columbus and Toledo and stuff like that, and all of them have it in stock. So I thought it was online only. When it first came up, it was online only, but apparently you can get it anywhere. And as far as prices go, it depends on where you buy Inklands. I know a lot of places have clearance those starter decks out to like $5.
Okay. So I think if we value the promo card, I mean, I think it's still good value. Again, just depends and whatnot. So, but interesting, interesting product. And I at this point, I think it's safe to assume that I would expect others to come from, like, say, what was after Inklands, Ursula's.
Yep.
So, what do you think? Is this a trend we're going to see? Just these little boxes, in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, if we're seeing starter kits getting marked down to $5, maybe they just have an uber abundance of product still of certain product.
That's what I was going to say. That's a way to get rid of that product, that the backstock product. It's an easy way to get rid of it.
Yeah, but no, I like the promo. Just I don't need Inklands. That's my current biggest holdup. I would probably just rather buy the single, honestly, and that's kind of where my head's at. I think that's probably where John's head's at too. Is just single it up.
Yeah, if it's at Costco and every store has it in stock, there is going to be a plethora of these out. And the other thing with Costco, if they're carrying it in store, they have a good habit of, in 3 weeks, if they're not moving, they'll slash the prices in half.
Interesting. So I'm curious of that.
I figure market value of that card will probably be $20, and I just assume buy it for $20 and be done with it. That's just me.
Yeah, it's a beautiful card. I think somebody posted the foiling in the Facebook group. But moving on from this, switching things around a little bit. If you've watched other episodes, you know that we liked our Disney trivia, but that's always towards the end. And to give us a little break, let's chime in. We need like a little jingle or something like that. But John, let's do some trivia.
Ask you a bunch of questions. I want to have them answered immediately.
So for anybody who hasn't stuck around and seen the Disney trivia, or this is your first podcast episode that you're clicking on, this normally happens. It's the last segment that we have. It's a Disney trivia. John has these fantastic, sometimes methodical, crazy questions that come out of left field.
Yeah, there's so many of them that are just like, I don't even know what is this.
I mean, we're pretty diverse whenever it comes to our Disney knowledge, I'd like to think. And there's some questions that just stump us. And then other times it's questions that we just look like fools. And I'm sure anybody sitting at home watching us, they know the answer. And they're like, man, who are these guys? Why are they doing this podcast?
Yeah. And I keep track of it. It's essentially 5 questions. We go back and forth. If you can't answer it incorrect, the other person can steal the points. Dylan's up 2-1. So, we're tight. Well, I don't know. We may just keep track of it on a yearly basis if we go that long. Yeah, if we go that long. Yeah, see how far we go out. But Dylan won last time, I believe. Yeah, Dylan won last time. I got to check the notes.
Let me fire my ChatGPT real quick.
Yeah, and so we'll start with Preston first, since he lost last time. So the first question, according to the film Cruella, what is Cruella's real first name?
I,
Dylan?
this is one of those questions that Dylan
Yeah.
was talking about. Like these fools.
Yeah, it is.
And
Dylan,
maybe
go for it.
we should have went and watched this film because this is not the
I
first
know.
one.
Every
This
card.
isn't the first question we've got from this.
I've got 2,000 of these cards sitting over here, and every one of them has a Cruella question in it. It's like, what the crap? I mean, my wife loves 101 Dalmatians. I didn't watch the movie. I didn't watch Cruella, but that's okay. But
I'm not even sure the name of the actress who played Cruella in that. Because this is the live
yeah,
action.
this is the live action.
Cruella movie. Yeah. I'm gonna say Emma.
Oh, you're not far. It was Estella.
Okay.
Okay.
You weren't that far off. It was,
Pick a generic name from a list and
yeah,
Emma.
old timey generic name. Go. All right, Dylan. Sergeant Calhoun from Wreck-It Ralph is voiced by what actress?
How fitting.
It's his
I'll
favorite
tell you what she
color.
looks like.
You don't know her name?
I don't know her name. Oh man, I have no clue. Like I see her face, I can visually see it, but I do not know this lady's name. Fantastic voice actress though,
Yeah.
and I've seen her in Modern Family.
Mm-hmm. Preston, do
No
you know?
idea. No idea.
Jane Lynch.
Nope.
Jane Lynch.
Lynch.
All right, Preston. What role does Alfredo Linguini have at the restaurant before being made chef in Ratatouille?
Oh goodness. It is it. I was going. Is sous chef?
No. Dylan.
Was he a janitor? I don't know.
Dylan, do you know?
Yeah, I think you're right. Whenever it comes to janitor, Alfredo. What was the last name?
Linguini.
Oh yeah. It's the main character.
Yeah.
So I've never heard anybody call him Alfredo. I've only remember him as.
I just
Linguini.
read the question as it is on the card.
Oh well, that's yeah. He was the janitor. He cleaned up the kitchen.
You know what? We'll call it that. It's the garbage boy, is what they called him.
Okay.
That's a janitor to me. Is a garbage boy. No offense to anybody out there who is a janitor.
I couldn't remember any like distinct, like no distinct scenes in my mind like popped up with him like doing janitorial work. So I was like, yeah, like sous chef. So darn.
It's only the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So Dylan, this one's going to be a good
Preston.
one. No, Preston. I asked Preston this one. You
Okay, yeah, you're right. You're right. That's why you're in charge of this game.
This one's going to be another one of those off the wall questions. What Disney Channel star appeared in the final song of High School Musical 2 thanks to votes from High School Musical and the Disney Channel fans? Of course, I won't give any hits, but I didn't know it until I flipped it around and went, all right, that makes sense.
Miley Cyrus.
You are correct.
I was digging deep in my soul to recall that. I was playing that scene in my head. I was like, it was either Miley Cyrus or Brenda's song, and I was trying to think of who was like more popular. Like I say more popular, but more like relevant. But I think that was about the time Hannah Montana was still going strong too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
makes sense.
Makes sense.
I was digging deep in my brain.
See, I'm too old for that. I've never watched any of the High School Musical movies.
Miley Cyrus. We were too young, so we watched High School Musical when the first High School Musical when we were in elementary school. And it got our hopes up and it set the bar. And then when we finally made it to high school, we were like, man, what is this? This is not like the movie.
This is bull crap. I could totally see that, but no, that's okay. Well, I'm going to go on because now I'm just going to feel old. All right, Preston, you can't win, but we've got one last question. At least get a point on there. In Luca, who adopts Alberto at the end? And it's a multiple choice question. A, Luca's parents. B, Ercole? E-R-C-O-L-E, Ercole? I don't know how you say that. I've never seen Luca, so. C, oh boy, there's some names here. Guali's mom and D. Masamiro. Don't know. I've never seen Lucas, so I'm butchering all those names.
I'm going to go with the pairings.
Incorrect. Do you know, Dylan?
Is it D?
It is D.
I couldn't remember his name.
It's been a
Go
minute since
watch
we looked
Luca.
at it.
If you have not watched Luca, is fantastic.
I haven't watched it. Yeah, I haven't watched that one. That's why I butchered those names. Apologies to everybody out there, because when you have me say names that I've never heard before, I have a tendency to butcher them. So.
It's another one of those underrated Pixar movies that not a lot of people talk about. Fantastic.
Yeah, I have a list, and it's on my list, but my list is very long, so.
Well, I'll spare the Wish conversation. I just watched that last night.
I haven't watched that one either. The toys didn't do real well. I always see them. I'm a toy hunter.
Let's bring it up real quick. Just a quick question. Do you think that there's a possibility that we will see Wish cards in the next set or two?
Is Wish Pixar?
I don't think so. I think
I'll
it's
look
just
it up.
Disney. I think it's just purely Disney.
I don't know. I mean, they seem to be touching a lot of franchises. I mean, I'm trying to think of a franchise for cards that we have that maybe weren't as popular. Right now I can't think of any. I think the only one that like maybe wouldn't be as like popular with the masses would be like Treasure Planet or something like that. And we still got Treasure Planet cards. But I could see them tapping into it. Like, and not to get into spoilers, but the villain, while I mean it was an okay film, the villain arc was interesting. But I was sitting there watching the film thinking, oh, like that'd be a cool like card or the song or something like that. So I could see them touching Wish, but I don't know.
We're gonna get that goat on Archazia Island.
Maybe. Who knows?
But it is a Disney movie. It's not a Pixar
it's
movie.
Disney. Okay, it's
And
not
if
Pixar.
you're into tomato meters, it's 48% tomato, 80% audience.
Yeah, it was pretty bad critically reviewed. Box office numbers were terrible. It was definitely a bomb, but they're still a Disney movie.
Still a Disney movie. So good to see a card. But speaking of cards, getting to our main topic again. Now that we're going long in this episode again, but we are nearing the end of Azure, which is really sad. Like you hate to think about the end of something, because these sets really define not only a point in time in the game, but also almost like a point in time in our lives too. About what was happening during that set and stuff like that. But we are approaching the release of Archazia's, and this is again John's like our little human Google here, but we did get the release date for Archazia's, and I failed to not put that in our Google note here.
It is the 7th of March for hobby shops, and the 22nd for big box stores. And something that I forgot to mention before the thing is I wanted to give a shout out to Ryan and Glenn at 2kidshobby.com. They got a sale going on right now. If you pre-order, boxes are $100, troves are $40. If you purchase 4 boxes, you get a case. So, yeah, so you'll get them in a case. You won't just get 4 random boxes. Those guys are cool. I talk with them directly. They're my new hookup. I like having hookups.
Well, we should have linked that inside the description.
Yeah. So they subscribed to the channel. They were very impressed with the show. They had lots of good things to say to me about you guys with the production value and the topics and the talking. They were really excited. So that I shared the channel along with them. So, but yeah. So if you're looking for cards, or if you're looking to buy at a geese, that's only good till the 1st of February. So 2kidshobby.com. So.
Let it be known that all of our unboxing videos are boxes that have came from them.
Yep.
And in the next set, it looks to be the same way, because I know I've already pre-ordered a case from them. Yep. I think John's
I did
probably
too. I pre-ordered a case from them as well. So, yep. So.
And for FCC, not sponsored, by the way.
Yeah.
No, yeah, they're not sponsored in any way, shape, or form.
Sponsored.
Absolutely not. No.
Friends of the show.
They are literally, they just started about Shimmering Sky, or no, this last set. So that's where I got my case from them, and it was nice to just get it sent in the mail. It was here at the house. I come home, I didn't have to travel anywhere to get it. It was good. So
$99 for a box is kind of a steal if you're looking at other prices that's going on right now.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. At the end of the day, a business is a business, and that's still above at cost and whatnot. We're happy to support local shops and whatnot with singles and whatnot. So, but whenever stores are able to do that for the community, I'm not complaining. Especially now that Dylan's upgraded to box level, so that was kind of surprising to hear from you that we're going to do a box next time. But before the boxes come. But March 7th, so a little bit over a month until the release, we did get one pretty big reveal whenever it comes to Archazia's Island, and that was that a new franchise is coming to the game. Lady and the Tramp will be inside Archazia's Island, and we did get a beautiful piece of artwork from this particular set. It is Lady, but this is where we get Lori, because there's a lot of things. It may look like beautiful art, but there's a lot going on here. There's a lot going on inside this art. And think back to the release image, to the announcement image for Archazia's Island, where we had Bolt, where Bolt had multiple collars and the multiple symbols on his wrists and on his collar. Look at Lady inside this art. Dylan, you want to break down what we're seeing here with Lady?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely see some what we would consider some emerald colors there in her headpiece, and a little bit that is wrapped around her paw that you can see in some images. But it's very interesting that both her and Bolt, in the two images that we have so far, have this woven pattern that they both have on them. I know there's a lot of people that look at these and they're saying multicolor. Bolt being amber still, and Lady now being emerald amber. And I still don't know. I don't know, because
it could be nothing.
It could be nothing. It could just be story related. This woven piece that is on both dogs that we've seen so far. It could just be some symbolism of the animals or the critters that are on Archazia. But maybe it could be multicolor.
We don't know. And that kind of brings us back to the conversation, because I think we, in the first episode, before we even knew about Archazia's, I think we came out and predicted that this would be something that would be a thing inevitably at some point. And I like what I'm seeing here whenever it comes to multicolored inks. And obviously we don't know anything about this set. We don't have any card reveals. All we have is the image of Bolt, Lady, and the release date. And this has me asking, if multicolored cards or multicolored inks did come into the game, how it would work. And I would like to think that, I know we talked about colorless ink. I know we talked about multicolor. I think now with this Lady and the Tramp art and the Bolt art, I think multicolor is, I would say, a higher probability than colorless. I think if they did colorless, I think it would just be a new ink color whenever we're so used to something already. But I think it's going to be very straightforward. A card that can be emerald amber and still have the same rules. Maybe you could have up to 4 of that card. I don't see them moving away from that. But something I was thinking about reading the notes last night was, could we see a limit? Like, what if you could only have 4 of one multi-ink color card? So I think it's going to happen. I think that's how it's going to work, is just be affiliated with 2 ink types. Dylan, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you have to put a limit on it. I mean, we see now with Floodborns, going back to how many Floodborns we have. I love Chief Bogo that came out in a previous set.
Oh, we know.
And and the way he works is when you play a Floodborn character, he splashes 1 damage onto all opposing characters. That is so easy to do in decks now because we've had so many sets. There are so many Floodborns. And if you don't put a limit now, starting out with, if there is a hypothetical multicolored cards that are coming to the game, if you don't put a limit on them now, then later on down the line, we could see what's the point of having 2 ink colors if there are so many different multicolors cards out there that you can just throw together into a deck. I think my biggest concern with it is how it's going to work. Yes, I think you need to cap it out. But then the second thing is the big question is if we have a deck that is Ruby Sapphire and you have a multicolored card, will you be forced to only use multicolored cards that are also only Ruby Sapphire, or can you use a multicolored card as long as it has one of the ink types?
I never thought about that.
Personally,
Mm.
I would like it if it was just one, because I think it really opens up the meta and it really opens up deck building. And then you can see combinations that you wouldn't necessarily see if you were forced to play a card that had both of your ink colors.
So let me visualize this for our listeners here. So let's say if you're running a Ruby Sapphire deck, and let's say color or multicolored cards came in, and there is a Sapphire Emerald card. I think that would just because obviously it would have elements of Sapphire and Emerald, for example, just throwing something out there. So we would have to think about what that would be like, because it's like, do you run all Ruby and then Sapphire multi-ink colors, or does it have to match the two color? Like, is your deck restricted to the 2 ink types? Like, let's say there is a Sapphire Emerald card, does your entire deck have to consist of the rest of Sapphire and Emerald, or Sapphire Emerald multi-ink card? So you're saying that you could use, let's say, all Ruby and then have a Sapphire Emerald card, and that would be your preference. Is that am I tracking right on that?
Yeah, so like let's say the lady, for instance. If this lady card is a multicolored card and it is a Amber Emerald card, and I am running a Still Song deck that is Amber Still, and all those are my 2 colors are Amber and Still. Yet I'm limited to how many multicolored cards I can add to my deck.
True.
I would prefer it if I only needed one of those inks from a multicolored card to match my 2 ink types. So I could hypothetically still use a Amber Emerald Lady card in a Amber Still Song deck.
Yeah,
And
it's like
only way you can only pull that off if they limit how many you can use per deck.
yeah. I think that would I like that thought process, because it's like you can still have your deck like a Ruby Sapphire and then have a touch of Emerald because of the intertwined multi-ink card with a Sapphire Emerald, for example. I think that because each ink collar, if you've never actually looked at the ink collars on the Lorcana website, there is a description of the traits and characteristics of each ink. Steel and Ruby exercising strength and power and control, Amber being very supportive, Sapphire being very rampy, and Emerald being, just Emerald and Amethyst being powerful spells. So that would just blow the door wide open if it did something like that.
It would be so much fun. And lore wise, going back to what we talked about in a last podcast, it seemed like in the story of Lorcana, they were going to Archazia Island or Owl Island to meet someone who could potentially be the caretaker who was in charge of the Great Illuminary, who should have great knowledge over all ink. And it would just make sense that they're teaching Illuminaries how to harness the powers of ink and multicolor just makes so much sense.
It,
I think
it, it makes sense.
makes more sense. It makes more sense than colorless. And I
Right.
want to pinpoint two cards in particular that I sent in to John, because to me, if we're going to have colorless, they are going to be black and white cards, black and white characters, like old school Disney cartoons. And the two that I think stand out are the Mickey, the Steamboat Captain. I forget which set we got him in. It may have been like the
That one.
first or second. Yeah, and he's been there from the beginning. And at first, I was like, okay, maybe this is a hint that we're going to get collarless later on. But it just the fact that he exists, and you can see he is a black and white character. And then this set, we got kind of his long lost cousin, Oswald, and you can kind of see Oswald in Oswald's art is peeling himself off of a black and white picture and putting himself in this three-dimensional world of ink. So maybe colorless does exist out there somewhere, and we could see it much, much later on. But I think that the fact that we have the art for these two cards, and they are black and white cards, those are the two main guys, Steamboat Willie and Oswald, that I would make first and foremost colorless cards. And the fact that they already exist in this manner, in this art, just makes me think that it's not there. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. No, I'm confident. We called this. We called it a while back. We just didn't know when. But I would be. Oh, I, I think I have an audio problem on my side because I could not hear John. Dylan, could you hear John?
Oh, was that me? I didn't know I was talking. Sorry, that must be something on my thing. I don't know.
No.
I think it's on Dylan's side. Something's going on there. I think it's just
Can
internet.
you hear that too, John?
Yeah.
Okay.
A slight echo.
No, it's like a I don't know.
Robot.
A little robot electronic static. It's probably weather's not great. It's probably just
as long as the audience can't hear it, we're good.
No, they can, but it's fine. It's no big deal.
a
Technology.
microbot has infiltrated. A microbot has infiltrated. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think the fact that they came out and the teaser image was like learn new tricks or something like that. Like I'm standing behind multicolored ink or multi-ink cards, but critters. We've got a lot of critters coming up, don't we?
We do have a lot of critters, and you've said previously we are kind of behind right now. There hasn't been much revealed. We haven't had any cards revealed. So before all the real reveals start to come out and happening, and I think we'll see them within the next month or so, or at least like it could be like it was last time. We get off of this podcast, we wake up tomorrow, and everything is just
Everything's wide open.
it's all in the companion app. I doubt it'll be that way. I think that they will release it out and they'll have their small content channels reveal cards the same way that they have in the past.
Ravensburger, if you're listening, we are open ears to a card reveal, by the way. Dylan has a plan for it.
But
walk us through some
before
critters.
those get revealed, we wanted to try to get our 2 cents in and do a couple of predictions and whatnot of who we would like to see the most and who we think really has an opportunity to be present within Archazia's Island. So just a top 10 list real quick, and we can pinpoint one thing on each of them. And this is in no particular order, but number one is Todd and Copper from The Fox and the Hound. When you say critters, these are the guys that I go to first and foremost. So not only could you have individual cards for Todd and Copper, but we really, really, really need more cards that combine two characters onto one, like the Flotsam and Jetsam and the Chip and Dale. You can't have Todd and Copper in Lorcana without doing that. I mean, because they're the best friends.
Yeah, I could see it being like another Chip and Dale type situation. Like they benefit off each other.
Yeah. The second is also from The Fox and the Hound, That's Big Mama. So for anybody who hasn't seen that movie, she is kind of like the caretaker who she takes all these wilderness animals, especially Todd, and just wants to help foster him and shelter him. And Archazia's island is our island, so what better person to have taking care of all these critters there than Big Mama the owl?
100%. Who's next?
Third is Marie. I mean, she's just a princess. That's all it is to it. Like,
Yeah, easy.
we don't have any Aristocats at all so far in Lorcana, so this would be another new IP added. 4, we have Scat Cat, also from Aristocats. This cute little lovable guy who plays the trumpet and just his little jazz band. He's definitely a singer, right? Like, you have to give him that singer ability.
Card.
5 is Little Brother from Mulan. Just thinking that he would be an adorable little one-drop card as an ally. 6 is Thumper from Bambi. Like, this guy, he would have a rush, and he would be rushing around everywhere.
100%. I would be shocked if we don't get Thumper at this point.
7 is Figaro. Now, I don't know about how people actually know this, but Figaro is the only character in all of Disney that has had 2 different owners. Figaro was originally owned by Geppetto in the original Pinocchio movie. But Figaro was loved so much that Walt Disney actually made short cartoons about Figaro just by himself. And then eventually, Figaro was introduced as Minnie's pet. Mickey had Pluto, and he had Figaro.
Okay.
And we see Figaro in the Mini Surfer art.
Yep.
Figaro is there. So might as well just give Figaro their own card at this point.
This next one, you think it's going to happen finally?
It needs to happen. There's so many people that want this to happen, especially Mushu Report. But Mushu has to be there on Archazia. To me, it makes sense. And we got that Sisu card, the Amethyst Sisu card, the 4-drop that came out in this set that plays off of that dragon tag. There's not that many dragon characters, and I just think Mushu is going to be one of those dragon characters that comes through, and maybe we can see those fun league decks that's just dragon characters.
Oh, yeah. We'll see.
The next 2. Number 9, we have Dumbo. Just going back to IP that we haven't had revealed at all so far. Dumbo is completely absent from Lorcana. And he's probably one of the most well-known characters in all of Disney. This would make an amazing evasive card.
Oh, should be. Yeah. This is something that I've thought about because and again, not to go back to DLCs, but the golden Mickeys that they distribute at DLCs are serialized, and there's only 500. And 500 is a lot. Like, there's no doubt that the golden Mickeys are going to be like next DLC prizes and stuff like that. But I'm like, what happens once we reach 500? What other iconic Disney character art could replace have a new golden version being the golden Mickey? And this is one I could see them once we surpass 500 golden Mickeys distributed for the DLCs. I could see Dumbo being easy iconic replacement, not replacement, but hey, we ran out of serialized Mickeys, we got to get another one out. So Dumbo would be fun. But Archazia,
yep, and that's the last one we have is Archazia themselves. If Lorcana has built this entire universe through the lore, and we are on Archazia's island. Who in the heck is Archazia? We still don't know, and there has to be an Archazia card because there is no. Once we have Archazia's island, we're hopping right into the reign of Jafar.
What if it's an alias? What if it's
Iago?
Iago? What if Iago's just trying to lure people to this island to trap them for Jafar's reign?
Potentially. But, I mean, all answers as to who Archazia is, to me, they have to be answered in this set before we move on to something else. So, without knowing who Archazia is, maybe it's an alias, maybe it's a character we've already seen, maybe it's an item, maybe it's not a character at all.
Buzz Lightyear, I don't know. Like, it's just left fielded. No, that's wild. No, no doubt we're gonna get critters. Thumper, my wife's gonna lose her stuff if we get Thumper. That's all I'm saying. There will be a Thumper deck.
Cheap little rush card.
Don't give her another rush card. Anyway, but folks, kind of nearing the end of the show here, but final predictions before we get to closing. So there's just a lot of unknown because we don't have a whole lot to base off of. But I am standing behind the fact that not the fact, but I am standing behind the prediction that we will get multi-ink cards inside this next set. I feel good about what we've seen with the two teaser images to where if it's not, I would actually be like, whoa, like I was convinced this was going to happen. Also, I think we're going to really start to set the stage for Jafar's upcoming set. Again, after Archazia, we have Jafar's reign, and I think we'll probably get a lot of lore cards, kind of building and say that scene. What's going to happen with the Hexwell crown, for example. And we have a couple enchanted predictions here. Again, Bolt, obviously, in the set, I would expect a Bolt enchanted card. And now that they have a lady art that was previewed during the last North American Championship, I think we'll see a lady enchanted as well. So, but Dylan has some hot takes on potential enchanteds.
Yeah. So going right off of Bolt, I think that we will for sure get a Super Bark action card. Maybe it's a 5-cost card. See it somewhere possibly still. But for anybody who hasn't seen Bolt, that's like his iconic move, I guess, is his Super Bark. So I don't even think it'll be a song. It'll just be straightforward and action.
Fair.
And then we've been talking about it from the beginning, especially following the story with Multicolor, is Hey Hey. And going back to that Lorcana panel that happened at D23, I think it was Steve Warner who actually said that Hey Hey is like their mascot card that they have, which that's why we have a Hey Hey of every color, and every set that has came out so far, we have gotten a Hey Hey in a different color. So I think that we will finally get that Thanos Gauntlet Hey Hey card of he's got all the
colors,
all the ink colors, all the chromacons or whatever. He's got all the ink. He's finally going to come together, and we will get a multicolored Hey Hey of some sort.
I hope.
But as for enchanteds, it's pretty wild because it's not just a one card. I actually think we will get a Pluto enchanted, a Cruella de Vil enchanted, and potentially a Mulan and or Rapunzel enchanted. And I know that sounds like I'm asking for a lot. There's actually some thought behind it. So we know that there are enchanted princesses released in every set. Every set since set 1, we've gotten at least one enchanted princess. So following that list, seeing who we don't have so far. And I think the only ones left that I can think of are Mulan, Rapunzel, Asha from Wish, Pocahontas, who we're not getting yet. There may be one more that I'm missing.
We know. I mean, just the fact that they made a big deal about Pocahontas, she's getting an enchanted. Like,
yeah. Whenever she's released or she's like added to Lorcana, she will get one. Pluto. So another thing that they've been doing since set 1 is just the little Mickey family. One person from the Mickey family has received an enchanted since set 1. Set 1, you've had 2 Mickeys. Set 2, you had Pete.
Yep.
Then going forward, I know Minnie got one, Donald got one, Daisy got one this set. Chip and Dale, technically, I know they were rescue rangers, but they're still part of that family as well. They received one. Clarabelle received
That's all
one.
got one. Yeah.
So just one, at least one person from the Mickey family. Pluto has not received one yet.
I think with Critters.
Yeah. So Pluto's got to receive one there. It just fits. And then Ravensburger's previous relationship with Disney playing off of Villainous. We've talked about it. They love villains. If you look at the enchantments they've had so far, you've had all kinds of different villains from every set. And I don't think any of them's really been repeated yet. So,
I don't think so.
Looking at the villains who have not received one, in my head, I'm like, which one makes the most sense? And although it's a little cruel, I think that Cruella de Vil getting an enchanted and having good cards that come out in this set that are worth enchanteds in a set that revolves around critters.
Yeah,
knowing her character, a little cruel, but I can see it happening.
It would be a fun level of twisted in a sense. No,
but we wanted to go ahead and get these final predictions out before anything else is revealed. That way we can look back next podcast and see what we got right or what we got wrong, or say, hey, we said that was going to happen.
We thought this was going to happen. And with the once a month cadence that we're on, we will probably have one more podcast episode right before the hobby store release of Archazia's. And hopefully by then, everything should be revealed, I would hope. Unless they're really... Yeah, I would like to think. But we can't talk about predictions without getting John's 2 cents. John, what's your official predictions you're locking in for what's up?
I'm with Dylan on the Todd and Copper. If they don't put Todd and Copper in this set, what are you even doing? And and the other things you see too in the picture, which I don't have it right in front of me, of Lady. You know, you see Scotty and the Hound. I can't never remember his name now off the top of my head. You see them in the background, so surely there's going to be cards of most of the characters from Lady and the Tramp.
We'll have Scamp. It won't just be Lady. We'll have the other animals that are there as well.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be I hate to say dogs again, but it is going to be a lot of critters this time. You know, 2 sets. Inklands was puppies, so and maybe puppies will come back. I love puppies.
More the name of the podcast.
Yeah.
Ahoy, salty dogs.
Yeah.
We are.
But yeah.
Any enchanted predictions?
Gosh, I honestly hadn't thought about enchanteds, but a Lady Enchanted, definitely. I think they'll definitely have a Lady
There's
Enchanted.
Too much hype around the art.
Yeah, there's too much hype around the art, and then I'll end up pulling it, and I'll not be able to sell it because I'll have to keep it, because that's my wife. Of all the Disney movies that we both like, Lady and the Tramp is our favorite one, our joint favorite one. She likes, not that I don't like any of the other ones any less, but Lady and the Tramp is the one that we both go, yep, that's our favorite movie, because we both watched it as kids. So
are we getting spaghetti as an item?
Oh man, I hope so. That would be great, wouldn't it? I don't know what it would be, but that would be hilarious if it was spaghetti or something like that.
That'd be hilarious.
Yeah.
One last final prediction: these enchanteds way better than the ones from this set.
Except for Maleficent staff. It's a running joke at this point. I'll never forget that. Literally, Dylan making that prediction, Maleficent staff, he's like, no, never mind. We'll see. I don't know. I'd be curious if they're going to follow a similar art or a different art style like we got with Pirates. I think it might be a one-off just with Pirates being that sketch paper, but
it'll definitely be a one-off. Something that I read somewhere is whenever they do the enchanteds, they choose one artist to do the enchanteds for each set. So whatever the enchanteds look like, and it's no disrespect whenever I talk poorly. I mean, I really like Maleficent's staff, and I really like the enchanted art. I just think that it's weak art compared to enchanteds that we've gotten in the past. But whoever the next artist is that Ravensburger chooses, all of the enchanteds should be based off of what they decide.
Good hot take. Good hot take. But anyway, no. So we will see. Hopefully, by the next time you hear from us, we will have all that needs to be known about Archazias. But folks, if you have made it this far, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Again, it's almost like a little mini league conversation taking place right here. But really looking forward to Archazia's March 7th release at the local game shops. Next podcast, I'm sure we're going to go just as long in terms of what to talk about. But some changes to the logistics, though. So we invite you all to follow us on X or Twitter, what have you, at the Ink Table Podcast. I know I'm not personally on the platform, but Dylan does a lot on X. So thank you, Dylan, for doing that part. Also,
John's
check out.
been handling all of that for the most part.
That is true. They really are active on the socials and whatnot. But also check out the new website, theinktable.com, listed inside the description below. Thanks to the folks at the Gamers Lounge who have worked to make the show possible and make these improvements, not only with the art and production, but also the logistics of the website as well. Also, the video version of the show and more Lorcana content can be found on our YouTube channel at the Ink Table Podcast for those audio listeners. If you're seeing my face right now, you're in the right place for that. Also, we welcome any viewer questions or feedback to podcast at theinktable.com. You can also follow Dylan on X. It's going to be Dylan BA17. And then myself, Preston, I can be found at Preston McNair on YouTube for even more Disney Lorcana content. So be sure to consider subscribing no matter where you're listening to, whether it be on Amazon, Spotify, YouTube, what have you. Leave us a review if you feel so inclined to do so. We love the feedback so far. Let us know your thoughts on the set in the YouTube comments below. Helps get more visibility and ultimately helps bring some more folks to the Ink Table, where there will always be a seat for you and many more to come. So folks, we'll see you next time. See you, folks.